Wow. Hi, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of Marty Time TV. I am Marty Caswell, brought to you by the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. That is a familiar face. You'll know him well. It's Jake Gariani of CBS. He looks to be at Petco Park because we've had some very minor Padres news, shocking news. I mean, I don't want to ever overuse shock. I am so shocked. I'm floored. I'm sitting on my floor right now. Jake, how are you? What's your initial reaction to the Padres hiring the ultimate mystery candidate in Craig Stammen?
Yeah, I think like everybody else, shocking is the right word. And I think more shocking is the fact that his name just wasn't out there, Marty, right? Like we all heard the Albert Pujols, we all heard the Ruben Abel, we all heard the Nick Hundley, the Flaherty name was thrown out there. Craig Stammen's name somehow never leaked out, never was spoken by anybody until some random Kentucky radio host, with no slight to him. I know he's a big time name, but who's not a guy who covers the Padres, said that it was going to be Craig Stammen. So I think the initial shock of that name is the stunning part of it. But I will say, when you start to peel back the layers, Marty, and you look at Craig Stammen, the candidate, and the pedigree of him, the hire does start to make a lot of sense, in my opinion. You look at a guy who pitched 13 years in Major League Baseball, 6 right here in San Diego. You look at a guy who played with Manny Machado, who played with Fernando Tatis Jr., Jake Cronenworth, Adrian Morejon, all of these guys. Marty, when's the last time you saw a middle reliever that demanded the amount of respect that Craig Stammen has had? So I think when you start to look at everything that Craig Stammen is, and I understand he has had zero coaching experience at any level, that is a bit of a concern. But honestly, the guy played 13 years in the big leagues. He understands the game inside and out. He understands the organization. He's been working with them the past few seasons. He's worked on the minor league level. He's worked with the front office. He's worked on the MLB level. A lot of it does start to make sense when you look at it, when you get over the initial shock of, oh my gosh, this is a name I hadn't heard at all.
Okay, Jake, I won't keep you too long because I know you have a bunch of live hits to go ahead and get to. And I actually have I had a great conversation with Joe Musgrove on this. We're going to get to that very shortly, and on a ton of topics he was surprised by Craig Stammen's name emerging at the end, and I asked him about the very abrupt exit of Mike Shildt as well. So that conversation is coming up there. You and I were texting last week, and I told you I didn't think it was going to be Albert Pujols for a ton of reasons. I mean, listen, I know he's a great name. I know he's one of the greatest players I've ever seen. He's a Hall of Famer, but you know what? It's a very small list in any sport of great players who've gone on to become great managers. And he has never coached at any level. The difference that Craig Stammen does have, now he knows this organization inside out. He just retired from the Padres. Was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago? I could be wrong. I am positive I saw him in the clubhouse at Wrigley Field. He's a special assistant to Preller. He knows the organization inside out. He knows a bunch of the players on that, important players in that team. You mentioned Machado and Tatis. So I kind of get that, but I did not see this one coming. I thought maybe AJ would get his way with Flaherty. The interesting thing is going to be what happens with Ruben Niebla. I know everyone expects him to go ahead and return. So hopefully that is going to be the case.
Yeah, it sounds like it's already been confirmed that Niebla is going to be back. And most of the coaching staff, obviously, except for Victor Rodriguez and Tim, who are both already gone. But it sounds like most of the staff is going to be retained, and I think that's a big part of this hire, Marty. We've heard AJ talk a ton about how he wanted to keep this core group together, this group that's been here for almost a decade because they've gotten close. And so I think that really goes into this hire in a sense of, why didn't you hire maybe an outside name, or why didn't you do this? Well, Craig Stammen knows this staff, obviously. That staff is going to stay together as much as they possibly can. And I do think, Marty, once you do get over that initial shock, as I mentioned, that this hire will make a lot of sense. Now, whether he's going to be a great manager or not, I have no clue. But I think this isn't, with no slight to Jay Stingler, this isn't one of those where you're like, who, why, where?
Right.
Like Craig Stammen makes sense when you think about it.
The interesting thing is that Preller hired. I mean, all the 4 finalists, they had never been. They were all going to be first-time managers. So correct. I mean, listen, Shildt, it worked until it didn't work. Bob Melvin, NLCS, then it didn't work. So this is I don't know what to make of this. I'm curious to find out what kind of coaching staff he is going to assemble. I thought Nick Hundley would have been a very, very interesting choice. I know he was the first choice of Buster Posey, who also went with a first-time manager from Nashville, right? So I don't know. I'm floored.
I think when you talk about the first-time manager situation, obviously there'll be a ton for Craig to learn, and there'll be times where people go, "This is why you don't hire a first-time manager." Of course, those moments will come up. But the fact that he is surrounded by a staff that has been doing it for a long time, in a front office that has been doing it for a long time, I think will soften the blow a little bit of that first time managerial things. I just have a feeling it's not like he's bringing in his entirely new staff and it's a bunch of cats that don't understand the organization. Like, Craig is going to be backed up a lot in this situation, in my personal opinion.
I know that a lot of people thought that Pujols was going to be the right hire because of his relationship with Manny Machado and Tatis, but there's a lot more that goes into that. And one thing I will say on Stammen, he was very popular in that clubhouse, in this current clubhouse, including by Manny and Tatis. So I think, and you'll hear from Joe Musgrove as well, but he thought that that's going to actually be a pretty smooth transition. And one thing he mentioned that's really good, and I don't want to go ahead and tease the entire interview. He said that he has no ego. So he's a guy, he has to learn on the job. But hopefully the most important thing he can do is hire the right people around him to because he has never done this. This is crazy. Never.
And the expectations are going to be massive, Marty. They won 183 games in back-to-back seasons. This is a team that obviously it is like World Series or bust has been talked about around here, and they're returning a huge part of their core. Like, it's not going to be able to ease into this thing for Craig. It's going to be you better win right away kind of situation. So The pressure will be on for Craig. And it's cliche, but time will tell to see if it's a good hire or not. I don't think it's going out on a limb to say it's AJ Preller's last hire. So it either is going to work or it isn't.
We said that last time. I said that with Bob Melvin. That was his last hire. Then I said Mike Shildt was his last hire. I say the next hire is his last hire. So I've got one more for AJ Preller. So we're going to go. We'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens there. All right. I know you have to go. We'll have to do this probably next week, and maybe I'll see you Monday. By the way, Padres, there's no school on Monday because there's a holiday on Tuesday. So thanks a lot for this. You guys ruined another day at Disneyland. So here we go again. Thanks a lot, Padres. Jake.
10 a.m. Monday, Marty.
Oh, for Pete's sakes. All right. Thanks so much for your time. I'm going to go ahead and get to my interview with Joe Musgrove. Jake, I really, really appreciate you. Talk soon. You can watch him on CBS, watch all his live hits. Maybe you'll see Craig Stammen rolling in there. Maybe you see the Padres players. Maybe by the way, finally, we're going to hear from John Seidler at this presser. If there's a time for John Seidler to talk, this is the time. This is interesting. Maybe we'll find out more about AJ Preller's future as well when they have their inconvenient 10 a.m. presser on Monday.
I will say my last thought, I have a cool video I put up on my Twitter account because when we were in Philadelphia for the end of the NLCS and the Padres had been eliminated, Craig Stammen walked up on the top step and I took a video of him just soaking it all in because I think he knew it was his final moments on the field. Now, he did try and come back that spring training in 23, obviously had the injury and retired, but it's a pretty kind of telling video if you want to go check it out on my Twitter account because you could just see his appreciation for the love of the game. Now the fact that he's their manager, I don't know, it kind of gave me chills to see the video. So I will leave you with that, Marty.
I'll leave you with your chills. Thanks, Jake. Have a great day. Talk to you soon, my friend. All right, so that's Jake Garriani from local CBS. You can follow him on the social media at Jake Garriani. All right, guys, I need to get right to it. Sorry, I'm on my floor today. It's been one of those days. I was at a school jogathon when the news came through, but here I am. All right, here is Joe Musgrove. We had a conversation with Joe Musgrove about, listen, he was as shocked as I was, as all of you on the news of Craig Stammen, his former teammate. Here is Padres pitcher Joe Musgrove talking about Craig Stammen, the next manager of your San Diego Padres. Everybody, I'm talking to Padres pitcher Joe Musgrove on what can only be described as a very surprising day for the Padres and the Padres fans. Joe Musgrove, if you can give me your initial reaction on a former teammate of yours, Craig Stammen, being announced as the next Padres manager.
Yeah, it's a name that, wasn't talked about much throughout this whole process, really. I only heard his name in the last day or two get mentioned, but, a little surprised at first. Didn't know he was even considering taking a role like that. But knowing he's in that spot, man, I couldn't be more excited. I think he's going to be a great guy for the job. Getting to play with him for a little bit, I know who he is as a person. His level of integrity, the level of respect he has from, everybody in that clubhouse. I think he's going to fit in great, with these guys. It's going to be an easy transition for us, having somebody that's been around for the last couple of years, in a bit different of a role where it can be a little more buddy and, friendly conversations. But you see his baseball mind grow just in the couple of years since, stepping away as a player. And I'm extremely excited for it.
I know how highly he respected he was as a teammate? What was he like in that clubhouse? And the thing is, he's not going to be a stranger to a lot of guys in that clubhouse, including yourself, including Manny Machado, including Tatis, Morjon, I think you, Darvish, as well. But how much of a player coach was he towards the end of his Padres career?
He was amazing. I mean, he was still every bit, as good of a competitor as anybody in there. But yeah, you could see the transition starting to happen. I think his willingness to have, these mentor type conversations with some of the younger guys were starting to trickle in a little more and more. But Craig was an extremely focused guy. Like, being on the team and having a chance to take the ball and impact the game, he took that very seriously. So, by no means saying that saying that he was, kind of losing his touch for the game and transitioning early into the coach's role, but, more so adding that to his plate of, taking the responsibility of being that, veteran presence and kind of just like the gold standard for how things should be done around the clubhouse. The level of respect he took for the clubhouse itself and little things like, lounging around, always busy doing something, rarely saw him sitting at his locker. He just set a great example for everyone around him. And he was a fun dude to be around. He was the guy that you could have fun with and knew how to wrangle guys in when, the moments got tight. He knew how to have tough conversations with guys, but never scold them. Just a very classy way of everything he did. So I can only imagine it's going to be elevated a bit in that managing role.
Joe, how big a deal do you think it's going to be, though, that he has had zero coaching experience at any level?
I mean, I don't know that it makes a difference. I guess we'll find out. But Craig's baseball IQ is very high to begin with, and I think his personality and his lack of stubbornness to always be right and be the one that has the final say is going to be I think, non-existent. So I don't think you're going to rush you of an unexperienced guy in a managing role forcing the decisions that he wants. I think he's going to be the type to build a good team around him, of guys that he trusts, allow them to do their job and give them the freedom to have say in how things are done, and lean on the guys around him. Not to say that he's not capable of making the decisions on his own, but I know he's not too prideful to feel like he needs to be the one with the final say. So, it could be good. I think one of the most difficult things to do over a course of 162 games and playoffs and a spring training buildup is manage your pitching, manage the bullpen, manage the usage, innings of your starters and rest. That's probably the most difficult thing to manage. And I feel like that's common that you see that be the one snag in a team is that, the mismanagement of the bullpen or guys getting worn out too early and not being, able to sustain through postseason. So, if Ruben decides to stick around, which I think we all are praying he does, they'd work extremely well together in making sure the staff is taken care of and guys are getting usage properly. So, and then you rely on guys around you and not, Craig's capable of making these baseball decisions, but, like I said, he's not going to be to the point where he has to be the one making the final say. So I think it's a great move.
I'm not sure if have you talked to any of your Padres teammates about this decision?
No, I mean, I just left the gym, so it was
Okay.
like a few texts between sets of, workouts, but I haven't had any serious conversation. I talked to AJ for a little bit, but that's about it.
How do you think this is going to go over in that clubhouse?
Great. I mean, we talked a lot over the last couple months as
Okay.
players of, what direction we were hoping it goes. And, most of these guys have been here for a handful of years now, and we've been through, this will be my fourth manager here.
Wow.
And there is a certain level of like, exhaustion's not the right word, but it's just like this stress of, man, starting all over. Someone's going to come in with an entire new approach to the game and how they see it. And takes a while to get everyone back on the same page where, Craig's the guy that's been around the clubhouse. It's an internal option where he's seen how people work. He knows the personalities. I think the transition's going to be a lot smoother, which is important. In spring training, there's minimal time, especially in a year where the WBC is happening and we're going to be losing a handful of guys. I think the quicker we can get this thing off and rolling before guys, split off to do the WBC stuff, the better off we're going to be as a team. And I think having a guy like Craig in there that knows these guys and knows the routines and knows how guys like to work, I think it's going to make that transition a lot easier for the players.
Joe, I know I'm literally catching you on the road, so I won't keep you too long, but you're talking about the managers and how exhausting it is. It seems as though that AJ, that you guys found the right manager, the right partnership. How shocked were you by Mike Shildt's exit from the Padres?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see it coming. I know he just signed his extension. I think he had 2 more years on his deal.
Yeah.
you know, I don't feel right about how Shildt left. You know, as players, there's, you know, a certain standard you expect from your manager, and there's a certain level of communication. And I think personally, Shildt, I'm going to speak on my own behalf. I'm not going to
Okay.
speak on behalf of anybody else. I know there's guys in that clubhouse that, you know, match my take on this, but I'm not going to put anybody else's name on this but mine. But I had an extremely high level of respect for Shildt, and like, you know, I'm a firm believer that you shouldn't let someone else's experiences, you know, become your experiences because you're close with the group. It's like the group of friends that, you know, has a buddy that's a jerk to everyone but you, and now you're expected to be, you know, a jerk to them because your friends are mad. It's like, it's a very uncomfortable feeling where I'm not trying to diminish any of the stories that have come out. I'm not trying to, you know, make people seem like, you know, they're overreacting and you need to suck it up. But from a player standpoint, I had an extremely high level of respect for Shildt, you know, for what he's done in the game and for how he came in and transformed our organization into like this winning culture. Um, you know, and I think AJ would agree with me that, you know, it felt like we had the right guy. And I think up until the point of him stepping away, I still felt like we had the right guy. You know, his track record in the big leagues, he's done things that, you know, no manager has done. He's done things for our franchise that no one's been able to do since we've been a franchise. Um, and I want him to get his flowers and what he deserves from a player's view of the commitment that he gave to us on a daily basis. You know, the time spent at the field, and I know he was hard on the staff. They had long hours, long days, but as a player, I always assume that's kind of what's expected. Is the staff, you know, has to be the nail sometimes, and you know, it's not an easy job. And again, I'm not trying to diminish what those, you know, choice few have chose to say, but as a player, I'm not going to let, you know, their experience, you know, just trump mine, and not tell people how much I enjoyed working with him and how good of a human I felt he was, to me as a player personally. So I could talk about him all day. We had tons of baseball conversations. The way that he, you know, brought me out of my shell and you know, allowed me to step into more of a leadership type role, and, you know, empowering me to be the one to give, you know, to give the talk or to have the hard conversations, things that, you know, I hadn't been comfortable with doing in certain situations. I feel like I'm a better person and a better player after playing under him. And I wanted to make sure people heard that from me, and had a chance to, you know, to hear it from a player in the clubhouse, who has a very different perspective and a different relationship with him. So
I appreciate that. One of my last conversations with you at Petco Park during the regular season was asking you about the specific window of winning that you guys have opportunity. Yourself, it was, you know, of course, Michael King and Dylan Cease are free agents, and Yu Darvish now is out for at least a year. But
right.
Manny, Toddy, Bogarts, all in their prime. How much of a blow was it to have Mike Shildt leave during the window that you guys do have, that you feel that you have right now?
Yeah, and I think more so just because like the things I talked about, like we've had 2 years now under Schilt's running, and his style of baseball and his you know, his overall view of how we were going to get to where we wanted to get. Everyone felt very confident, and I think we had seen ourselves grow as a group over 2 years. So you get excited about, you know, what it's going to be like having 2 years of experience going through the tough postseason that we just went through, and coming back with some fire, and everyone in that room having that same feeling of, you know, of that bad taste in your mouth and wanting to get that back. So it was a shock, but again, you know, the window that we have to win is, you know, is shrinking. So, you know, you invest this much money and effort and time in these players, you have to, you know, you have to get it right. So if it means you have to try something new every couple of years, you know, so be it. And we all want to win here. So we got a lot of faith in AJ. We love Craig. You know, we feel like we're in a great spot to compete again, and then be back in the same position and hopefully get a different result. So yeah, it's shocking, but, you know, in this game, it's not the first time I've seen it, and it's probably not the last time we'll see it. So as a player, you start to learn to be, you know, somewhat numb to this, and, you know, shift your focus fast and get back onto, you know, okay, what's next? So
Were you part of? Did you talk to management during this process? I'm not sure if Preller talked to you in the past when he was going through a manager, or talked to Manny Machado or Tatis. Were you part of this at all?
yeah, AJ always keeps us in the loop.
Okay.
I don't think that we're putting input in that's directly affecting a decision, but I know it's a piece of the puzzle that helps him make a decision, is how the players feel and the direction we feel like the team needs to go, or the type of manager that he feels that we need. or what we're lacking, so we have a little bit of say, but it's more like let me do my homework and check in with all these different departments that deal with the manager on a daily basis and, find a common consensus of what the group needs. So
my last question to you, Joe Musgrove. Actually, I have two questions because I do want to ask you about your rehab and where you're at right now. But I know Padres fans heard the name Albert Pujols, and that's the name
Yeah.
That's the Hall of Famer. That's one of the greatest players I've ever seen in my life. We know the relationship with Manny Machado and Tatis. I think we heard about Nick Hundley, who I love covering as a player. I know he's really,
Right.
and that was the Giants' top choice. But what do you say to Padres fans who are like, man, this is a terrible, who the heck is Craig Stammen? No experience at all. They want the name. What do you say to Padres fans who are really on the fence about Craig Stammen and wondering what it means about the direction of this franchise?
Yeah, I mean, I just think about how you felt about every manager that's been here in the past. Everyone feels like we got the perfect guy. This is the right guy, and we don't get the results. So it's not always about how you feel at the start of it. I think Craig deserves a chance to get to show what he can do and show how he runs a team. But I've seen it at every level now, and I've seen it on multiple teams at the big league level. It's the respect is a huge factor in a clubhouse, from your manager to your players. And I've seen guys with, a much higher track record like an Albert Pujols. I've seen those types of guys be disrespected by players and not have the trust of the players and, just not have that cohesiveness with your clubhouse like you would expect from somebody of that caliber. When I've been around guys that are first-year managers and don't have the record or don't have the notoriety or the track record of someone like a Pujols and have an amazing relationship with the players. And I think the fact that Craig knows everybody in there, it's going to be, a really tight bond. I think it makes the hard conversations easier. It makes day-to-day conversations easier. The open door policy feels like a true open door where we know Craig, we know his personality, we know his willingness to compromise and to find some middle ground. So I think the conversations and a lot of the difficulty about, blending a manager and his players together is going to be in a much better starting point with Craig at the helm. So
he's a great communicator.
I would say give him a chance. I think you're gonna be impressed.
Okay, good. He's a great communicator. I'm looking forward to getting to know him on that level. All right, last thing, Joe, and this is an important thing. I mean, we saw the news on Yu Darvish, which is an absolute blow. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Michael King, but right now I have Nick Pivetta penciled in, Randy Vasquez, Joe Musgrove. How are you doing in your recovery?
Yeah, I feel great. It's a kind of a weird time over the last month because my mind, my body, everything was like geared up for this playoff push, and I had been tracking my whole timeline and adjusting our schedule to be able to be back by that, CS World Series time. And I was at a pretty decent point in my ramp up already. So the season ends and now it's, do I continue to push forward and start throwing to some hitters and see where I'm at, or do we take advantage of where I'm at and how good everything is right now and just do a normal deload like end of season and then re-ramp it up for spring training? So we decided to go with that latter decision of, tapering down and giving myself like a normal break. I have been throwing for the last 5-6 months and getting up to some high intensity. So we took some time off and I'm in like my second week back of throwing now, but I feel great. I feel like the rest was really good for me. The rest of my body feels great. So the plan for me now is just to continue to progress as this is my normal off season.
Okay.
It's going to be a little bit different adjusted because of, some of the new ranges or the new limitations that have come with the surgery, but kind of a little bit of trial error under my same normal program.
So any doubt you fully expect to be in your normal routine come spring training?
Yeah, I mean, this is all barring that like I build up and feel great still,
Okay.
with where I was at, come the end of the season, bullpens, like pretty good velocity, pretty good spin. So, having another 4 or 5 months until I need to be ready, I can only imagine in a great spot.
I can't thank you enough. Joe, I can't thank you enough. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people trying to get a hold of you right now. I'm sure there's a player thread on what's going on. So I really appreciate your time, your perspective, and what you had to say on Mike Shildt. I know that was important for you to go ahead and get out. So I appreciate that. Look forward to catching you up. Maybe I'll see you at I'm not sure, SDFC playoff game or maybe a
I'll be out there Sunday night coming home from
the wedding, you will.
Straight to the game. Yeah.
Of course you're going to be out there. You're the best. I appreciate you. Thanks for doing this, Joe. And we'll look forward to catching up soon.
All right, Marty. See you.
Thanks. Okay, so that was Padres pitcher Joe Musgrove, who was so kind enough to go ahead and check in on today's shocking news of the day. As you guys heard from him, he did not, just like the rest of you, he was shocked by this. He did not really catch any wind of Musgrove, of Craig Stammen even being candid, even being interested in this job until a day or two. I'm looking forward to Preller's presser and Stammen's on Monday, because I would love to know how this came about. Did AJ Preller say, listen, Craig, I think you'd be a great candidate for this job? Or did Craig say, listen, I'd be interested in this role. Maybe this is the time. But we'll see. We'll see. It's Joe Musgrove's fourth manager. And this is why it'll be different than, say, like Jace Tingler, who was a first-time manager. Craig Stammen already has the respect of the players in that clubhouse. Guys like Manny, guys like Toddy, guys like, Joe Musgrove. He is not going to lose the clubhouse. He is a great communicator, and he doesn't have an ego. The most important thing for Stammen is going to be the coaching staff they put around him, starting with his bench coach and his hitting coach. So we'll see what happens. All right, guys. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm disorganized today. I'm disheveled. Thank goodness for this Lake Elsinore storm hat. I was literally at my nephew's jogathon when the news broke. So I ran home. I'm sitting on the couch and everything's a mess. So thanks for your time. I'm sure we'll have a lot more interesting news coming out of Padres land. Plus, of course, there will be a press conference on Monday. All right. I'm Marty Caswell. That was Joe Musgrove. Thank you, Joe Musgrove. And thank you as well, Jake Garriani, who's still at Petco Park right now doing live hits. This show was brought to you by the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. Is Niebla still with us? Yes, he is still with the Padres. I'd imagine. Listen, he also predated Mike Shildt. That was that's AJ Preller's most important hire in recent memory has been Ruben Niebla. I'd imagine that. I don't care if you talk to Pujols or Hundley or Flaherty or Stammen, you were going to inherit Ruben Niebla, who is such an important part of this coaching staff and hopefully a future manager. Thank you, Ocean View Coffee Shop. I love this hat. I wear it all the time. I need some more Lake Elsinore storm hats. All right, guys, have a great day. Today, I believe, is Thursday. We will talk to you on Monday, if not sooner. Again, I'm Marty Caswell. You're watching Marty Time TV, brought to you by the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. Have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you soon.